So there's this great quote. It only takes one lie to ruin a relationship. Because the reality is that once you plant that seed of doubt, once you plant that seed of deceit, you give a person reasons to now question everything that you got to say. And that one lie can start to create all kinds of insecurities and create a very negative, unhealthy environment in a relationship. And it's just downright a problem that so many people have faced and experienced in their own relationships or situationships or whatever some people are getting involved in. So it begs the question, why do men keep lying to women? Like, why are there so many men who are constantly telling lies, especially when we consider so many are not even good at lying and eventually they're going to get caught anyway. So it's almost like, what's really the purpose here? And I get asked this question a lot by women, trying to understand the motivation, what is driving the man's intent to take this route rather than just be honest about it. Now, I'm gonna break this whole thing down, and I need you to listen to the end because there's a very important message I have for you at the end about this whole lying situation, all right? That you really have to understand, and it's gonna bring you a lot of peace and clarity. But let's start breaking down some of these reasons why men will lie to women. And one of those reasons is because they're immature and have unresolved issues. Now, this is not to simply just attack men or bash them, but it's the reality is that I'm gonna say this. I have a good friend of mine, and we believe one of the pillars of being a man, or even pillars of walking your masculinity, is being honest. Like, you have to accept that you're not gonna always get what you want. You gotta accept that it's not gonna always create the greatest scenario, but you at least stand in your truth, right? And that takes maturity to understand it, and a maturity that a lot of men have yet to develop. But before I go deeper into the maturity issue, I want to go into the deeper unresolved issues issue, because I had a man recently reach out to me who said, I need help. I love my woman. You know, she's great. I don't want to lose her, but I keep lying to her. And I don't understand why. It's not about anything important. I'm just lying about nonsense, really. And I can't seem to stop myself from doing it. Can you help me? So this is not to create sympathy, so to speak, for a liar, but it is to speak to the reality that there are men with deeper unresolved issues that cause them to lie. And men like this, it's not even just lying to women. I know of men who lie to their homeboys all the time about the stupidest stuff. Like, it's so unnecessary for them to lie, and they still do it. Now, from what I have examined, right, the root of it seems to be one, some men the insecurity they have, and they're seeking a level of attention, validation. They want people to look at them a certain way. They tend to embellish everything. So they tell lies because they want to shine a good spotlight on themselves. They tell lies because they want to hype up a situation because it's going to make them look good. They're going to lie about what happened in a story because, again, they want to come out looking like the man or whatever the case may be. This desire to be revered and looked at a certain kind of way pushes them to lie because the truth won't get them any points. All right? Again, not saying this is okay, just explaining it to you. Another reason why some lie is because they're just so insecure about themselves that they just feel like the truth will never be good enough. Okay? Like somehow it kind of goes back to the whole wanting to be viewed a certain kind of way. They have to either add extra to a story or they have to make certain things up because they want to come out looking a certain way, and they feel like the real them isn't good enough for whatever they're trying to accomplish or however they're trying to be seen in people's eyes. Okay? Then you have deeper issues where some people just have grown up in very dysfunctional households, and lying is almost a part of their life, you know, and they just habitually lie. And those individuals need therapy. They need help. It's not anything you can fix in them, okay? They have to be willing to go address the deeper issues themselves and learn how to stand in their truth. So going back to the fact that in also their immaturity of it, they have not learned how to accept the realities of what happens when you lie. And one of those realities is that when you lie, you are likely to create more lies trying to uphold the first lie. Okay? So a lot of men do not understand it. And again, we can say people, right? But we're focusing on men, but I just want to acknowledge I think we all know men and women have told lies and tell lies, right? But a lot of people, when they're younger and immature, don't consider the fact of what rabbit hole you're sending yourself down by telling this initial lie, and how exhausting it can be to have to uphold that lie with more lies and trying to cover your tracks and all this extra stuff that goes into it. And so I think for a lot of people, once you get older, you realize it ain't worth it. It ain't worth it. Once you mature, and when I say get older, once you mature, because that's the key. Some people gotten older and still haven't gotten mature, okay? And some people are young and have matured very quickly. Once you mature, once you gain wisdom and knowledge and understanding of things, you realize it's just not worth it. All right, all that will come with it. And then you could do all that work, right? Try to cover all your tracks, and you still get caught and found out. So now you have to deal with the exhausting process of keeping it going. Then you still have to deal with the consequences of them finding out you lied, on top of the fact that now if it happens within a romantic relationship, you have undermined the trust in that relationship. So these are things that a lot of men have not considered and instead are reacting in the moment, okay? And that's another sign of immaturity, is not thinking ahead, not understanding the bigger picture, but instead just reacting in the moment to whatever it is they're fearful of or whatever they're trying to portray about themselves, whatever the case may be. But before I go to the next point, I just want to reinforce, or I want to repeat to you, the men that have the deeper issues as to why they lie and the immaturity of why they lie, trust and believe they're lying to everyone, men and women. I see it all the time. So it speaks to their lack of development as an individual, and hopefully in time they're gonna grow up and figure it out. All right, so now another reason why men lie to women is because he feels that if he tells you the truth, he won't get what he actually wants, okay? So let's start with one of the most common things that men feel like they won't get if they're honest about it, and that's sex. Let's just, we're gonna keep it real here, all right? And I always laugh at the whole, you hear a lot of women say it. You might be one of those women that'll say, oh, if a man would just tell us that's what he wants, then maybe he'll just get it, right? Stop the nonsense, all right? Like, listen, it is best for a man to be honest. And I encourage men to just be straightforward. Don't play games, because again, you want to give people an opportunity to make the decision for themselves and know what they're getting themselves into. To me, we got to eliminate all the deceit and the games and all this type of stuff. So at least if people want to engage in different situations and casual relationships, at least they're doing so understanding what it is rather than being led on that it's something else, okay? But if men really thought, or if men saw that being straightforward about wanting to sleep with you actually would work, they would do it. All right? They would have no problem doing it. They don't do it because it typically is not going to work. Now, here's an interesting thing that I've observed. You as a woman can correct me if I'm wrong, or you may have a different opinion. But I have spoken to some women who have acknowledged that there are some situations where the woman can come into the situation actually only wanting to sleep with the man as well, right? That's her only desire. She doesn't view him as anything more. She just wants to have fun with him. However, the minute he says to her directly, I just want to sleep with you and that's it, it's dead. She don't want to do it no more. Like she had no problem when it was her who essentially viewed him as just a play toy, right? But he still desired her. Versus to be made felt like that's all she is desired from him for. And now it's like she feels like I'm cheapening myself or devaluing myself by allowing him to move forward. Now, is that every woman's reaction? No, but that's what some have acknowledged. So I say all that to say a lot of men have experienced that being straightforward doesn't get that result. So what that lends to is now more men being vague about it, which is why, as a woman, though men need to be honest, you're never guaranteed if you're going to end up dealing with an honest man or a man who's going to lie. So you have to equip yourself with how you can see through the nonsense and evaluate what this man is really about. And that's why it's important to ask questions. That's why it's important to recognize the signs of a man who is trying to be serious versus the signs of a man who just wants to sleep with you, because he's not going to always give you that. Some men will. Some men, if you just ask them, they'll tell you, right? They may not come out and say it directly, but if you flat out ask, they're more likely to just answer the question honestly. But if you don't, they'll go along being vague because that has worked more efficiently for a lot of men. And so whether it's just have sex, whether it's for some men out there, unfortunately, they're out here using women for a place to stay, for a car to drive, for help with the bills, you name it. He's not going to be honest about that because he knows that will undermine his ability to receive it. And let's face it, that's probably one of the biggest driving forces for anyone to tell a lie, is that they're afraid they're not going to get what they wanted if they're honest about it. And so again, it's just something to understand. And you have to realize that you can never rely on someone to be good to you in the way that says they will present honesty, versus you have to say, I have to be ready to seek out that honesty, so to speak, or seek out that clarity, I think is a better way to put it, in order to make sure you don't fall into any unwanted situations with a man who's on a different page than you. All right, so let's keep this thing going. And another reason why men lie to women is that he's not comfortable opening up to you, okay? So let's understand that not every lie is about like some big overall situation that's like cheating or inappropriate behavior, things of that nature. Sometimes the lies are a lot small. I use the word smaller in the sense of the magnitude of it, but a lie is a lie, you know what I'm saying? And they can still wreak havoc even with the small lies. But let's face it, sometimes it could be as simple as you asking him, where he was at, and let's just say he wasn't in the mood to talk to you. He was shutting down, or maybe he felt like he couldn't. He went to go talk to his mother or something. He didn't want to make you feel some kind of way about it, so he lied and said, oh, no, I was out playing ball. But in reality, he was out speaking to his mom about a situation that you're wondering why he doesn't speak to me about it, right? And so there's a lot of men who, in general, on average, a lot of men struggle with opening up. I think most of us, or most of you, can acknowledge that you've seen that, you observed that. But I do think that on top of men's own issue that they have to resolve of struggling to open up, there's also the other layer of it where a lot of women don't realize how they've reacted in moments that he was opening up, and then how that now affects his willingness to do so going forward. Now, I am not someone who believes, like, if you can't open up to your partner because of how they react and handle things, to me, the answer isn't shut down. The answer isn't stop being honest about certain things. The answer is address it. And if it can't be corrected, then maybe we don't belong in a relationship together. But the unfortunate reality is that a lot of men choose to just deal with it, but they deal with it in a very unhealthy way, such as shutting down, such as not being as forthcoming anymore. one of the reasons why that happens is because for some men, unfortunately, the perception is this is a woman thing, meaning all women are like this. Like I'm sure you've heard on the internet before, some of you may have heard, where some have told men never open up to a woman or never be vulnerable with a woman. She's gonna throw it back in your face, right? And they view it as like, this is just what happens, so I'm not gonna leave this woman for this reason because some other woman's gonna do the same thing anyway. I'm just gonna deal with it, but again, I'm not gonna be as transparent with her as I would have been initially. So that's a wrong way of handling it, absolutely. But as a woman, you do have to be mindful of how you react because sometimes you don't recognize that you allow your emotions to get the best of you in that moment and how you may have reacted very negatively or how you may have been very dismissive in that moment that he was opening up, or, and we're going to talk about a little bit more later, very judgmental. We'll get into that later. There's various things that happen in moments that men try to be more vulnerable, or the big one is if whatever it is he needs to be honest about and vulnerable about is something that he feels will cause him to lose respect in your eyes, that leads to a lot of shutting down, being dishonest, all these things, because that's one of the biggest fears a man has with a woman. Especially if he cares about how you feel, like he's really genuine about being with you and he's into you, he doesn't want you to view him in a less respectful manner. You know what I'm saying? That's a knife to the heart for a lot of men, for the woman that you care about to not have that respect for you anymore. So that unfortunately creates these situations, or contributes, I want to say contributes to a lot of these situations. So I think the way that we navigate through this specific one is, one, I think it's important for everyone when we're dating or in a relationship is to create the parameters of how we communicate, the parameters of how we open up about very serious issues and situations. Maybe even starting off with, hey, I want to talk to you about this, but I don't want you to look at me any differently. Now, does that always guarantee that you won't, depending on what he's about to reveal? Of course not, right? But it's kind of like the trigger word that says, hey, be mindful of how you react right now. Because even if he reveals something to you that you don't like or that you find unacceptable, whatever, unless you're prepared to leave that man right there, there's no point in reacting bad in that moment. Okay? So my thing is, if he says, for example, I don't have a good example right now, but if he reveals something, you don't like it, and this thing is not enough to where you're going to leave him. Let's just use the fact that, my ex reached out to me the other day and I was on the phone with her for like an hour and she had some questions, and you know damn you don't like that. You feel like that was disrespectful. Why would you allow this woman to sit there and have this conversation with you and not tell me about it in advance, right? That may or may not be your position, but let's just say that's your position. If you react bad in that moment, negative in that moment, you think he's going to be honest with you the next time something like that occurs? No, right? Because he doesn't want all the negativity that comes with it. But if you learn how to just stay calm, it doesn't mean you have to like it, doesn't mean you're accepting it, doesn't mean you're deeming it acceptable. It just means you're allowing yourself to process, hear it out, and calmly express your disappointment or your disagreement with it. That at least helps. It can still lead to that man not being as open next time, but that's different. If you are responding in a healthy manner, then it's completely on him if he tries to use that as a reason to not be honest moving forward. You know what I'm saying? But if you react in a very negative manner, you're adding fuel to the fire of him shutting down. And I think that's something that we have to discuss in advance as far as how we create that environment, that safe space, so that we can be open and vulnerable with each other as much as possible. Hey, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to check this one out right here, and I'll see you there. So I know a lot of you feel like men are confusing as hell, okay? I know that is what leads many of you to even be on YouTube looking at videos like mine, trying to understand how these men